Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. Got a quick little project here, something that I got some ideas for by seeing other like videos on the internet and decided I would give my shot at it. This is known as a salt cellar or a salt box, whatever you want to call it. It's a little nifty kitchen gadget container thing for holding things like salt or pepper or other spices. So pretty nifty little project, but let's get into how I did it. I don't know what species of wood this is, but that's pretty beautiful. First I thought it might have been an oak, but this is very yellow. Obviously I have a gouge here. I'm not sure I need to remove that. I think I got plenty of good stock in here. And I've also taken the time to make sure we're pretty square. Well, I just cleaned up this blank, and maybe somebody out there can recognize it. Tell me what species of wood it is. I'd like to know. I don't think it's indigenous to where I live. So there's the end grain cut, and that's also pretty good looking wood. One of my pet peeves, this table set has a 3/4 inch base to it, and even at the full extension of my 10-inch blade, didn't quite have the height to get all the way through this. Kind of a drag. I just took the time to lay out where I think I'm gonna try to build this. It's gonna be relatively round, but there'll be a little extension over here, kind of teardrop shape, where this will be the pivot point. And I just used the lid from a mason jar. It seemed to be about the right size for this particular blank. And I also marked this so that I can line it up better later. And now I just need to create a template. I got this 5mm 1/4 inch sheet of plywood, and I will make a circle template out of it. I don't have a hole saw that happens to be this size. I do have a small circle routing jig for my router, and I think I could possibly use that. But I think the easiest thing to do is to use a scroll saw, do it the old-fashioned way. Pretty round. Not perfect, but certainly good enough. I have a homemade depth stop here on my drill press, and I'm going to use that to set the bottom point of the Forstner bit to just touch about the thickness of this piece to make sure when I start to hog out the material, I'm not going to go too deep. If I use my marking gauge as sort of a depth stop and add about 1/8 of an inch for the tip of the drill bit, I get about right there, which looks a little more shallow than I'd like, but I'd rather be a little shallow at this point than be too deep. And here are the two holes hogged out. Okay, I have some double-sided tape here, and I'm going to very carefully put this down, centering it over the circle. I have this set of pattern following bits that have a round bottom to it, and these are particularly suited for a project just like this one. Other pattern following bits have square bottoms and they have other uses, and here's another one, just a square cut at the bottom. Okay, I just went around with this bit, traced the inside of the pattern. Okay, I took the pattern off and I switched bits to the radius bit. And I just realized I'm glad I didn't cut this too deep because I planned on putting a radius on this corner all the way around. And I'm not sure how that's going to end up. So I do have a little bit of material back here to play with. And removing the template is going to give me a deeper depth of cut on the router so that I don't have to extend the bit quite so much. Okay, I just did a couple passes. It's nice and smooth on the bottom. I feel a little bit of a lip down there, but I think I can deal with that. Generally very smooth. And there's a close-up, and that gives you an idea on the depth. Since I use my router, I spent about an hour cleaning up my workshop. I really don't like using the router that way. It throws sawdust literally everywhere. Trying to do some layout here, trying to find the center of this circle. And if you take a right angle and put it anywhere in a circle and mark where it intersects the circle, and then turn it around and put the triangle the same way on the opposite side of the circle where it's overlapping and at the apex, and draw that. That should give you a rectangle where if you connect the corners and find where they cross, should be the center of the circle. Of course, this is wood and it's kind of small. Okay, that seems to be the center. But what I'm trying to do is hit this outer edge. So holding in the center, I'm going to extend the compass till it reaches the outer extreme of the wood. And then I will draw those arcs. And that's going to be the outer edge of the entire piece. All right, that gives me a cutting guide because it's going to pivot somewhere outside of the circle around here. And hunting around, if I put this where it intersects that line and draw an arc like so, that kind of gives me an idea if that's the shape I'm looking for. And I'm not happy with that. These white erasers, pretty good job erasing pencil marks on wood. Okay, I've been playing around with a few washers. I find if I put a fender washer on the inner edge of the hole and draw an outer arc and connect it, that kind of gives me the shape I'm looking for. And I originally intended this to pivot on an 832 nylon lock nut, but it looks entirely too small. I'm thinking I might go to a 1/4 20 nylon lock nut. That looks more in scale, and there is room to embed it in the lid as it exists now. I wanted to mill out a minor recess in the bottom of each of the pieces, and it would be convenient to use the template I have. Unfortunately, the bit that I'd like to use is very tall. I guess I should have made this considerably thicker because I want the recess to be, something like that, 1/8 of an inch, couple of millimeters. I just want it to kiss the top. Another option is I have this bit, but this bit itself is even too tall, even though it would give me a sharp shoulder. I could live with that, but it's still too tall. Okay, I got the plywood double stick tape down and more double stick tape, and it feels pretty solid actually. Well, that came out pretty good. It's all within penciled line. And again, it's about 1.5 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch back. Now that came out really nice. Okay, I got my double-sided tape on here. I'm gonna stick these two pieces together. Project like that, I seem to be going through quite a bit double-sided tape. Okay, I just cut this piece out. Took a while, probably good 10-15 minutes, but it made it through. Just got to go slow. Not sure I'm thrilled with the shape of this. It seems a little tall in this area. I'm gonna look at it for a little bit. See, I'm wondering if I shouldn't take maybe a little bit more off of this apex up here. Here's a fender washer. Didn't quite seem to be the right size, so I found this plastic cup. And if you look at it there, that seems to be about the size I'm looking for. And here it is cut away, and I like that. I think that's more in line with what I had in mind when I started the project. And you can see 1/4 20 bolt fit with plenty of room, so I think this is going to work well. And I took the time to mark the other side, and I'll go cut that out. And here's the second one cut away, looking pretty good. They are reasonably identical to each other. Okay, just spent 15-20 minutes or so with the hand plane. I think I have most of the saw marks out. Got a little bit of chipping there. That kind of ruined my day. Kind of give you a little bit of a before and after. And as I'm sanding, I'm rotating the stock. So I don't want any flat spots. But this chip out here is bothering me, and I think I'm going to have to fill that with a piece of wood. I also bothered to save some of the sanding dust in case I need to use it as a makeshift wood filler. Over here I had that divot, and the technique I'm using is I'm gluing thin strips of wood over the patch and filling it with a little bit of the sawdust and glue technique. And to illustrate, I'll show you on this one, I want to put a little bit more of a filler over it. So the first technique, you get a thin strip of wood from a shaving, and I want to glue it right over that spot. So put thin film of glue and then put that over it and hold it long enough for the glue to tack up. And what I'm doing now is just knocking down this edge. Okay, I took this nut and located where I think I want it to fit, and I have this washer that will help me locate the center of where I want to drill the hole. Not so important where the hole ends up, as long as the hole here is in the same spot as the hole here. Okay, I took the smallest drill that was just long enough to poke all the way through this, and I plunged it through to get a hole on both sides. Then I lined these up to just make a mark in the lid. Obviously, I don't want that to go all the way through. Okay, this is one of the more critical parts of the build. I drilled out this hole, a little bit of a mortise. I want it to be a tight fit for the nut. It's got to be just the right depth. My plan is to engage the nylon part of the lock nut, and no more than that. I don't want the screw to come out beyond the upper shoulder here of the lock nut. Give it a few lub taps and hope that I can see the 6 corners of the nut, and then I will very carefully try to pare them away to get this to fit. Well, it took a fair amount of finesse work, but I have this lined up the way I want. There's the bolt. I had to cut it to length. The nut is buried in here. Nothing's glued or finalized yet. I want to add a magnet to the front to hold this in place, and I have this set from Lee Valley. Planning on using these teeny weeny magnets here. They're 1/8 of an inch in diameter. The exact location doesn't matter. I have this little tiny wire nail. I got a little barb there, and we have a corresponding mark here. Okay, I'm going to very carefully try to set this nut in here. Okay, despite my best efforts, I didn't get the magnets to line up perfectly, but a little bit of finesse sanding, and I think that's doing pretty good. Okay, now for the finish. I've actually given this quite a bit of thought, and first question is, do you have to finish it? And the only real reason is to protect it from the dirt and grime of your fingers. Maybe the occasional fingernail would scratch into it. There's obviously the moisture concerns of humidity, so I think a little bit of finish is a good idea. The only true food-safe finish that I have is this pusher block, which is really waxes and oils, not very durable. There is this Seed and Wax, a product I like a lot, not technically food safe because from what I understand, the mineral oil used in this isn't food grade. Linseed oil is always a common choice for things like this, but the boiled linseed oil has dryers in it that aren't the nicest chemicals. And there's always pure tung oil. This will take a while to set up, but as far as I know, it's food safe. But in general, I've heard my whole life that most finishes, once they dry, are food safe. And I'm thinking of just using shellac. The orange yellowish color of the shellac will enhance the color of this particular wood nicely. I did give some thought to mixing up some of my own shellac to be absolutely sure that this is just shellac and solvent, where I'm not quite sure there might be something else in this, but I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it. Classic shellac is just shellac like dissolved in ethanol. Typically dries pretty quickly, a matter of 20 minutes or so, and it dries hard enough where you can sand it and build up a finish. And again, I think that's looking kind of nice. Well, here it is all finished up. I got 2 coats of shellac on it, and I took the time to buff it with this synthetic abrasive. And there's the screw, and you can see as I rotate the top, the screw rotates with it. I think that's going to work pretty well. I'm not so sure if I was going to embark on another project like this that I would choose this wood, and maybe if I was going to do it again, I would choose a more interesting wood because there was a lot of time and effort that went into this. Not sure I'm gonna finish this one. There's still a fair amount of work to get from this stage to this stage, and if I put that kind of time and effort into it, I think I might explore a more interesting wood like this chunk I have here. That looks an awful lot like mahogany. And I hope you got something out of the video. If you do, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and as I like to say, stay safe, take care, keep your eyes out for the next one, and thanks for stopping by.